Donna had her career in HR and training, and she can tell you more about her background, but she's a fabulous cook, and that's why she's here with us today. By the way, Donna, I love your new photo. Go ahead, Donna, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
yes.
You sound
great. Okay, great. Thanks. I want to welcome everyone today, and thanks, Suzanne, for this opportunity to do the Retirement Association food demos. This is just one of my very favorite things, and like Suzanne said, it was even more fun when we were able to do it in person, and I know that one of these days we'll get back to doing it in person, because it's, you know, it's just not the same cooking it all up in my kitchen and then not being able to share it with you. So I will do the cooking today, and you know, you can stop by this afternoon if you want to taste. Just kidding. If you're in my neighborhood. But I also wanted to piggyback on what Suzanne said about the iCafe, and that continues to be a really fun thing. And they're always looking for volunteers from cultures all over the world. And should you decide to volunteer for the iCafe, you will get one of their beautiful aprons to show the world that you were one of the chefs on the iCafe. So the reason that we have our cooking demos at 10:30 on Fridays each month is because the iCafe is from noon until 1 every single Friday. And they have different countries around the world, and they're really, really fun. So if you haven't participated in one yet, please take advantage of the opportunity to do so. They just go and check it out any given Friday. And then when they're calling for volunteers, I highly recommend it. It's tons of fun. So again, thank you for joining today. And I am going to give a little bit of a presentation, actually quite a bit of a presentation. And Suzanne has the slides available for you. She will send them out to you or make them available to you. And then after about 2/3 of the way through the presentation, then I will actually do a little bit of a live demo. You will have the slides from that portion of the live demo. I put those on slides as well, so you have both. And you'll have the recording, because Suzanne's recording it right now. And you'll have the slides that you can follow along if you decide to make it at home. And I hope you do, because it's a really fun and easy recipe. So I have a slide presentation that I am going to share. And I'll see how this works. And here we go. Where'd my PowerPoint go? There we go. Ah, look at that. Is that working for people? Can you see my Spanish tapas?
So beautiful, Donna. You did such a great job on these.
Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to talk about Spanish tapas in general today. And then I will get into the tortilla Espanola. I'll get into that later. So Spanish tapas are really, they're more than an appetizer. We think of an appetizer or hors d'oeuvres, that kind of thing, but they're really a way of life in Spanish homes, and especially in the bars and restaurants. When I went to Spain many years ago, I won't say how many, you could go into wonderful bars where they would have, obviously pre-COVID, they would have all these hors d'oeuvres right on the counter in plates, and you would just say, I want one of those and one of those. And they would put a healthy portion onto a plate for you, and you would just order whichever ones you wanted when you wanted them. And it was delightful. And it's a really wonderful way to eat, because a lot of the tapas that you will see in different parts of Spain are really local. They're based on the things that are available in those areas. So you'll see a lot of seafood along the coast. You'll see more vegetables and salads farther inland. And it's very, very local, very down home food. Very filling, but tasty, and lots of variety. That was the thing that was really amazing. So where does the word tapas come from? As Suzanne put on the slides. I have a degree in linguistics, so I love words and I like to know where these words come from. And the word tapar in Spanish a long time ago meant to put a cover on something or to put a lid on it. And there are lots of fun little stories about where did the word tapas and the concept of tapas come from. So here's a couple of them. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about them. In the 13th century, it is said that King Alfonso X was recuperating from some sort of illness. I don't know what it was. And it was said that he could only drink really small amounts. So he could only drink a little bit of wine. He could only eat a little bit of a snack at a time, must have had some sort of stomach ailment. And so he decreed, supposedly, that if you had a little bit of wine, it had to be sold with a little bit of snack. So that was one of the rumors about the origin of tapas. Then there's another story about the origin of tapas. And this is about King Felipe III. And it said that he wanted to limit drunkenness on the streets. So people would have their wine in the bars, and he decreed that all the bars had to serve tapas with the wine. Good idea, why not? But didn't work. Of course it didn't. And then there was another story. This is an actual descendant of King Alfonso X, is King Alfonso XIII. And it said that he was in Cadiz in the 19th century. And of course, I don't think this was the origin of tapas because the 19th century was only 200 years ago, and tapas have really been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. But it is said that in Cadiz, it's very windy, and that he covered his glass, or the proprietor of the restaurant that he was in, covered his glass with a piece of ham to keep out the sand that was blowing around in the restaurant. And that was where the idea of covering the tapas, or covering your wine, the tapar, came from. And there's also lots of good stories about, did they serve salty tapas to encourage wine sales? Why not? Or did they sell tapas to mask, really salty tapas to mask the flavor of cheap wine? Who knows? But it doesn't matter because we're really lucky. We know about tapas and we know about the great and fantastic variety of them. And I'm going to talk a little bit about more. So there are all different kinds of tapas, and tapas change over time when things become more popular. And so here's just, I'm going to give you an overview of the kinds of tapas that you might experience. There are a couple of places you can get tapas in San Diego, and but mostly in Spain, you can go just about anywhere and get tapas. You can get seafood. Seafood is my favorite. I love seafood. You can get it steamed, fried, sliced, stuffed, all different kinds of ways. Shrimp are very, very popular. Lobster's popular. All of the shellfish are very popular. Clams and mussels and oysters. Mussels and oysters can be stuffed or just steamed. If you like them raw, they sometimes are raw. Calamari and ceviche are available all the time. One of the really popular fishes in Spain is bacalao, and that is a cod that's highly salted, and it's served in all of your tapas bars, very popular. And then one of the things that I hadn't seen when I was in Spain years ago is the bread with the tomatoes on it, with the garlic and olive oil. And that's very popular nowadays. And chorizo and serrano ham as sliced up small bits are very popular. And lots of cheeses, manchego, oveja, a cheese made out of the milk of just about any dairy animal that you can think of. And of course, anchovies. Well, let's go back to that seafood. They're very popular too, with your bread and tomato. Delicious. The dish that is on the far right-hand side of your screen is gambas al ajillo. And I will talk about that a little bit later. And because it's so good, really good and pretty easy. Another kind of tapas that you'll see in all of the bars are vegetables, particularly olives and small little bits like nuts. One of the things that I thought was really beautiful was this asparagus that was wrapped in ham, or you can wrap it in salmon or smoked salmon. And these are topped with hollandaise sauce. I thought that was really decadent, sounded really wonderful. Eggplant is a very popular one, and marinated mushrooms, delicious. Your vegetables can be, like this says, steamed or pickled or stuffed or wrapped or marinated or any of those kind of things. And then on your tapas bars, you'll also find salads. So if you're really looking for greens, you can have your greens with some seafood. And they also have fish salads that are mayonnaise based, and they're very good. You think tuna salad that we have, well, they have them with lots of other fish and lots of other things in them, like anchovies or capers or things like that. Just wonderful. And of course, we have the world famous tortilla a la española. That's what people outside of Spain call it. Of course, in Spain, they don't call it tortilla a la española because it's Spanish and they're in Spain. They call it tortilla de patatas or tortilla de papas. And it's also called Spanish omelet or Spanish tortilla. And it is really kind of a very homey type of thing to have, but you will find it in every tapas bar and in every restaurant. You can order it as an appetizer. If you really are not super hungry for a heavy meal, it's a great meal because it's like having your potatoes and your eggs all in one. It's just a delicious, delicious thing to eat. I have a story that Suzanne encouraged me to tell, and that is I once made the tortilla de papa for a party that I was going to, and each of the people was asked to bring a small something, and I decided to bring the tortilla de papas. And unknown to me, one of the people at the event said that he had spent his junior year abroad in Madrid, and he had one bite of the tortilla de papa and he said he felt like he was young again and living in Spain. It was just like the mother of the house that he lived in, the home that the family that he lived in, it was just like she made in the home for him while he was there. And he was just delighted that it actually tasted the same. And it's really a very simple thing. We'll get into it in a couple of minutes. I'm going to go over some other recipes, simple recipes for some really good tapas and when you would use them. And before I get to actually making the tortilla. So tapas are a very festive thing. You want to have tapas when you have people over, when you go out with your friends. They're just a very, very festive thing. So there's 3 ways you can have tapas, and I haven't even talked about the third one yet, but I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. First, you can have tapas as appetizers. So if you are asked to bring appetizers to someone's home, like I just talked about, or you have a main course planned and you just need a few things beforehand, just a few little appetizers, but something that's really along the lines of the traditional Spanish thing. So I'll be talking about tapas as appetizers first, and then tapas, all tapas all evening. And this is a really nice idea. If you want your guests to mingle, you want people to go to the counter where the tapas are or the table and have a small plate and take a few of different things and then wander around and chat with people. Yes, kind of resembles a 1950s cocktail or maybe 1960s cocktail party. Yes, you can serve Spanish wines and lovely other drinks, and but the focus is on these delicious foods and really traditional, the way that they would be made in Spain and served in a place kind of communal style. And then finally, the third one is a paella party. And paella is a dish that's very, very traditional in Spain, but it's a big main course. And so I'm going to talk about how when you have a paella party, you want to take it easy on the tapas because you want to make sure that your friends have room for that paella, because the paella is going to have lots of good things in it. So here we are, tapas as appetizers. So my advice to you is keep it simple so the guests don't fill up on appetizers, because if you keep in mind, you're going to have another main course and probably some other things with it. What I advise and what I like to focus on is variety. So for example, you don't want to repeat any ingredients that are in the main course. So if the main course is lots of fish, you want to focus on something that's not so much fish oriented. In my example, I talk about how let's say the main course is steak with corn on the cob and a green salad. So you can go all out with some seafood or some other tapas that are seafood related and not steak related, not green salad related, and maybe no corn. So that kind of thing. And in that kind of a situation, 3 or 4 tapas is really more than enough. You don't need to go crazy. Probably 3 is just fine. You can do a few extra things like the spiced cashews, that's pretty small. The olives are small, but these are all just little things that you want to have, little different bites with different flavors for that variety. And one of the possible tapas that I would do if I was having steak, I would do the gambas al ajillo, because now you've got your surf and turf, you've got your steak and you've got your shrimp. And so you're going to have all kinds of different things as nice little flavor bits to exercise the different flavors in your mouth. Okay, so let's say you're going to have just a tapas party and you can go crazy. So, but one thing I always try to keep in mind is know your limits. Don't try to make more than 2 or 3 things that you've never made before, because one of the things I learned early on was that if I try to go overboard, I'm still busy cooking when my guests arrive, and that takes all the fun out of having a party. So you want to make sure you focus on things that are doable in advance. And you want to keep in mind that you might want to have dessert as well. And then also make sure that you have a variety of ingredients in the different tapas so that you can focus on your guests' needs. So if you have some vegetarian guests, make sure you have some things that don't have seafood in them or eggs or that kind of thing. And gluten-free, make sure they're not all bread or breaded with flour, that kind of thing. And again, with seafood allergies, some people do. So for all tapas party, what would I make? I would certainly make the tortilla Espanola. I would make the gambas al ajillo. And I would try, I've never done the asparagus wrapped in, I would do smoked salmon. I think that would be really good with the hollandaise. I read a recipe about that recently, and it was stuck under the broiler to heat up and brown the hollandaise. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm making myself hungry. A variety of olives is always really good, green olives and black olives. And I'm going to talk about some marinating techniques for olives in a little bit, and some spiced cashews. I love cashews. I made some up spiced recently and they came out delicious, and everybody loved them and wanted to know how I made them. And they were really, really easy. Another thing that you can have on a platter is some sliced chorizo with some cheeses and crackers, maybe some slices of a baguette so that people can put their chorizo and cheese on the baguette. It sounds yummy. Next, let's say you decide to have a paella party. Now, a paella party is a dish that is usually served at a large gathering because you really just can't make a small amount. Sometimes it's cooked and served outdoors. There are outdoor cookers that you can buy that are your paella pan, and they're big, and they can serve dozens and dozens of people. Your paella starts with rice, and then traditional paella depends on the ingredients that are locally sourced. So you have lots of seafood on your coasts, inland. A lot of traditional paella had things like chicken or rabbit or all kinds of interesting things, maybe goat meat. We don't typically have those available locally here, but if that is something you really like, you can definitely put it in. It's not untraditional. And they usually contain a wide variety of ingredients. So they're kind of layered. You have your rice at the bottom mixed with your chicken that needs to be cooked the longest. And then you have your shrimp on top of that because they need a little less cooking. And then you might have the whole top of your paella with shellfish. And when the shellfish open, you serve it. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So what kind of tapas would you serve at a paella dinner? Well, for that one, you would want to keep it simple. You don't want to overwhelm people, and you don't want to fill them up before they get to your paella. So I would just make something simple like some olives, maybe some pickled vegetables, some marinated mushrooms, maybe a little bit of the baguette slices with chorizo and cheese. And that would give you a nice little variety, something for the person who arrives and they're kind of hungry right now and they need a little bit to eat while they're waiting for the dinner to finish. In that particular case, I probably wouldn't serve the tortilla española because it's pretty filling. And I don't want to fill up my guests before they get to the paella. So again, just think of the rest of your dinner menu when you're making your tapas, and make sure that you just don't overwhelm the menu with the tapas and have people get full before they get to the main course. So just a little advice. So I'm going to talk to you about some tried and true recipes that I have made very recently and that are super easy to make and are quick and not a lot of trouble, and something that you can definitely take away from this and take them home and make them yourself. The first one is gambas al ajillo. Gambas means shrimp and ajillo means garlic. Now, I like to use pretty large shrimp because they're just impressive. So that's the ones I like to use. You might see recipes that call for small shrimp. Those would be delicious too. That's just my preference because, you know, looks pretty. People can stick a toothpick in one and have a couple of bites on that one toothpick. I have made gambas al ajillo with both fresh and with frozen shrimp, and they turned out fine either way. And I'm going to give you a little secret of the universe when I give you the recipe for the gambas al ajillo. The next one is the marinated olives, and it's also marinated for mushrooms, for carrot sticks, for cauliflower, for anything that might be marinated. This is a way to marinate, lots of, actually, a variety of ways that you can marinate depending on the kinds of flavors that you like. And then finally, I'll talk about my spiced cashews that I made recently. Super easy, super, super fast, and it's a crowd pleaser. People just love them. All right, I'm going to talk about the gambas al ajillo, and I'm going to go through these recipes fairly quickly because you'll have all of the instructions right here. I tried to make the instructions pretty thorough. One of the things that you want to pay attention to with the gambas is how many people are going to be there and how many shrimp. And so I always kind of figure 2 or 3 shrimp per person because you're going to have other appetizers as well. It's not your main course. The second thing you see in there, it says 1/4 of a cup of garlic. You may think that's really a lot, but gambas al ajillo means shrimp with garlic. And some of the recipes, the old-fashioned recipes, say 1 clove of garlic per shrimp. So you can imagine if I have 8 people, I'm going to have maybe 16 to 20 large jumbo shrimp and 16 to 20 cloves of garlic. That is going to definitely be at least 1/4 cup, if not more. I love garlic, so I would go crazy with lots and lots of garlic. If you're not a garlic lover as much, you might want to find a different recipe because it's very garlicky. Now, for those of you who like things spicy, you can put in a teaspoon or 2 of crushed, just dried chilies. And that's not mandatory, but it's also very, very good. Tiny pinch of kosher salt is something that you might want to do. One thing that I do, if you're not using alcohol, is use a little bit of vegetable stock at the very end. You can also use sherry or brandy. Those are very traditional. And then at the end, you want some parsley. So what will you do? It's so easy. You want to clean those shrimp and leave the tails on. And one thing that I do if I'm using frozen shrimp, and this is my personal secret of the universe, and that is I defrost my shrimp in a bowl, cover them with ice water because they're frozen, keep in mind, and I just pour the salt in. And what that does is it brines them a little bit more, and the salt soaks into the shrimp and the shrimp soak up more water that way. So your shrimp are not going to be tough. They're going to be really, really good and juicy and delicious. So And I've done it many, many, many times. It seems kind of odd because you always think of when you're defrosting something, you don't want to get it in direct contact with the water. But with shrimp, it works really, really well because you just salt them down and get them in that brine. So once you have them defrosted and all brined up, you just empty the bowl, rinse off any excess salt that you might see. And you've got the little tails on them, so they're pretty. And you heat up your oil in a large frying pan. And you want it just kind of medium high. You want it to the point, I'm going to show you an example of a pan later that is shimmering but not smoking. You don't want that smoke, because if you do, then your shrimp are going to immediately burn. What I would do is I'd stir the garlic into the oil, because you're going to have a good amount of oil, not just a tiny bit on the bottom of a pan, but maybe a couple of tablespoons. And then I stir the garlic and the chili in, and I just get it until it's soft, and then I take it out, because when I put those shrimp in, I don't want that garlic to burn. So I just like to take it out in advance. Then you add the shrimp, and what I do is I add them in a single layer. And especially if you have nice, big jumbo shrimp, you want to be careful with them because they're typically kind of expensive. And what I do is I cook them in one layer on the pan, and I keep an eye on them. And when they turn pink on the bottom, then I one by one flip them over and just let them barely cook through on the second side. And I take them out, I put them right in that bowl that I had the garlic and the chili. And then I repeat. If I've got more shrimp, then maybe I'll add a little oil, wait for it to heat back up, and then put the next group of shrimp in there. And then when I've got all of them cooked on both sides, I bring everything back to the pan, stir it up real quick, sprinkle the parsley over, and serve them. It's pretty fast. It actually really is. If you do all your prep beforehand, and once again, do those things that you can do in advance and before your guests get there, you can cook these up just when they get there, and it doesn't take hardly any time at all. Okay. I love olives.
Can you take a question before you move to the
certainly
olives?
Yes.
Could you do all of those steps except that last step of putting it all together like a few hours before or even the day before?
I would highly recommend that. That is an absolutely excellent idea. Get all that garlic chopped or crushed and put it in a little Tupperware container. Get your shrimp completely cleaned, because you're going to want to devein them as well. Get that all done long before your guests get there, and then go take your shower and change your clothes and get all dressed and ready for your party. So yes, absolutely. Okay. That is definitely something you can do, because all you have to do at the end is then take everything out of the refrigerator, put the oil in the pan, and start cooking them up. And at that point, that cooking process is very fast, because the shrimp on each side only take at most 2 minutes per side. So okay. Probably a minute to a minute and a half. So yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Marinated olives. There are so many ways to marinate olives that I couldn't even cover all of them. I've just given you a couple of ideas on getting started, but this is just definitely something that you can experiment with yourself and have lots of fun with. I just use sometimes just plain old pitted black or mixed olives, some that you can buy just kind of plain at the grocery store. If you have an olive bar at the grocery store, now that they're not in containers anymore, you can use those as well, but you can just use some really plain olives, because you're going to really spice them up. So what I like to do is the suggestions that I have below at the lower left. The first one is do it all yourself. So Spanish paprika, some garlic and some onion powder, dried oregano, all of these things are dried because you're going to cook them up just a little bit. And so that's going to revive the spices a little bit. Other things that you can do are Penzies has a number of spice combinations that you can use. I would add paprika, Spanish paprika, because it gives that really smoky Spanish flavoring. But another very traditional thing to do is good seasoned Italian dressing. Makes a really good marinade. I know it's like straight out of the 50s and 60s, but it does make a very good marinade. And it does have maybe some chemicals in it that you don't want, and then don't use that, use one of your other methods. But I would definitely add a little paprika and add a little chili powder. And but all you really have to do is put everything, including your spices and a little bit of olive oil, into your saucepan, the olives and everything else, and then just bring it to a simmer. You don't want to boil it for a long time. You just want to heat it through so all of those spices get into your olives, all those herbs and everything. And then take it all off the heat, let it cool off, and then pour some vinegar over it, because the vinegar brings out all of the other flavors. And then just put it back in the jar or a container with a lid and stick it back in the refrigerator until the next day when your people come over. And the same thing kind of goes for mushrooms, except that with mushrooms, you want to get some of the water out before you actually put the dressing all over it. So you can saute them a little bit. I like to use small button mushrooms and not chop them up at all. Just get rid of the rough ends and just saute them up a little bit, make them a little brown, and get rid of some of the water out of them, and then pour the olive oil and the herbs and spices over. And again, just bring them to a really low simmer. Just get it up to the simmer and then take them off the heat, and then allow them to chill, and then put some vinegar in them. And you can use any kind of vinegar that you like. So for example, if you're using black olives, a black balsamic vinegar would be fine, because it's not going to change the color of your olives. If you have champagne vinegar, or you have red wine vinegar, all of those are delicious in different ways. You'll find a slightly different flavor with each one of those. So do I have questions on the olives? Carrots, mushrooms, delicious.
You said doing cauliflower this way, so again, you're just gonna boil it a little bit in advance, or what?
Cauliflower depends on how crunchy you want it. So if you want it pretty crunchy, then you really only just need to pour everything all together and bring it to a simmer, because as it cools off, it's still pretty hot and it's still cooking for a few minutes while it's cooling off. You might want to just boil it for a minute or two, parboil, and then throw it in with your oil and your herbs and spices. So that would work as well. And then again, don't pour your vinegar in until after everything's cooked, because it tends to harden some vegetables, and it's just, you just want it for that little bit of flavor and that little kind of little back bite, that little flavor in the back of your tongue kind of thing.
And Donna, I really like marinated stuff. If I'm doing it, but not for a party, how long does this stuff keep once you've made it in the fridge?
I don't know. We always eat them right away. No, I think they would, as long as you're not using a protein in them, they're not going to go bad quickly. So if it's just vegetables and it's herbs, and especially if the herbs are dried, if you don't put any fresh herbs in them, they're going to last a week or two. I would have no problem eating them a week or two later. Mushrooms might get a little soggy, but your crunchier things and your olives, they'll be fine for quite a while.
Super, thanks.
And then finally, my spiced cashews. I love these because I love cashews and I love garlic and I love paprika. So what's not to love? And they're really, really easy. You take some unsalted cashews because you don't need extra salt, but you want the ones that are cooked. You can buy them in the big containers at the grocery store or Walmart, or you can buy them in bulk at Sprouts, anything like that. And you just have a cup or two of your cashews and a tablespoon or more of Spanish paprika. What I like to do is I throw a little bit of oil in the bottom of a pan. You don't need a lot of oil for these because you're not trying to soak the cashews with oil. You're just trying to get the herbs to stick to them. So you just want a little bit of oil in the bottom of your frying pan. Then I throw the cashews in and I sprinkle over the top and make sure they're all covered. And then I do the same with the garlic, maybe the garlic a little bit lighter. And then with the chili powder, however much you want or not, if you really don't want them spicy. But I will tell you that Spanish paprika, after it's cooked, and especially with garlic, it's pretty spicy. It's pretty good. So it's mild for those of you who like spicy things. But if you just eat them out of the blue, boy, they're a little spicy. It's pretty surprising. But they're very, very easy. Toss them in the pan, sprinkle everything over the top. Stir them up until they're heated all the way through. And this will take a couple of minutes, but you don't want to brown them at all. You just want to keep stirring them until you kind of see them starting to change color a little bit, and then take them off of the heat and cool. And again, absolutely cook these the day before, a week before. These definitely keep really well. I have some in the cabinet that I took to a friend's house a couple weeks ago, and I made really a lot, and there were a lot left over. And so I still have a few of them, and they're still really good. We had some of them just a couple days ago, and they were still just delicious. So they don't go bad.
Donna, one of
Yes.
our members asked, how is Spanish paprika different from regular paprika?
It's grown in Spain.
Taste-wise, do you taste anything different?
I think they all taste a tiny bit different if you're really a paprika aficionado, but some are more smoky than others. So Spanish paprika tends to be on the smokier side. Hungarian smoked paprika is smoky. And then there are other paprikas that if they don't say a Spanish or smoked, they're a little bit milder. They're not as, they don't have that kind of smoky smell or flavor to them. You can definitely smell the difference if you have a smoked paprika and a not smoked paprika.
Thanks.
Okay, so guess what? It's time. So I am going to switch off of my slides, and I'm going to talk through a couple of them at the beginning, but then I'm going to switch off the slides because I'm going to show it to you live. And so you will have all of the slides. Have each of the steps that I'm going to show you very much step by step, but I'm not going to show you the slides as I go because I can't show you the slides and show you me at the same time. So here we go. I'm going to unshare my screen and we're going to go live. Nope, wrong way, sorry. Okay, I'm back. All right, can you see me?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to turn the stove on. And one of the very first things that I have on the slide is one thing you want to do before you get started when you are cooking is have everything ready to go before you start. Mise en place, Suzanne, you know what that means. And it's a cooking term, it's very common. You'll see it on your cooking shows. If you watch those cooking shows, you'll see they have everything all ready for them. Isn't that amazing? And that's what you want to do when you're cooking something like Tortilla Espanola, because you want to have everything ready to go. And well, my favorite thing about mise en place is it doesn't really mean everything in its place. It means no last minute trips to the grocery store. I hate it when you get halfway through the recipe and you realize I don't have enough eggs. I hate it when that happens. So we have everything ready here. I don't know if you can see that. We have our potatoes. We have our olive oil already measured. We have our onions already cut up. And we have our eggs sitting out here ready to go. Oops, just spilled the olive oil. And I have the garlic all ready to go. Now, this recipe does not necessarily have garlic, but I like garlic, like I said. And so I always put a little bit of garlic in it just for a little added flavor. It also doesn't have chilies in it because it's meant to be a very homey and fairly bland food item. But you know what? It's just so delicious that it doesn't need extra things like that. So, but if you like chilies and you just really want to try it with chilies, that's really okay too. So I'm going to pour my oil in. Now this is a lot of oil, you will see. And the reason for it is because we are going to drench those potatoes in the oil. We're not going to fry them. We're just going to cook them almost all the way through, not completely through, but we're going to get them to the point where they're soft but not mushy, because we don't want mashed potatoes. We want individual slices of potatoes in our tortilla. So I've got my potatoes all sliced, and I have them in water. And so while my oil is heating up, just going to center that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the potatoes, and then I'm going to pat them dry. So I'll be right back. Just going to pour off their water. Let's do that. And then I just pat them dry with a paper towel. And you want to get as much of the water off of them as you can and not throw them on the floor. Because what will happen is you're putting them in hot oil. And as you know, I'm sure that if you put water in hot oil, it tends to go all over you, which is not a good thing. It's painful. And so I just want them nice and dry. And I can dry them for as long as I want because I'm waiting for that oil to heat up. Now, I'm just going to keep an eye on that oil because, like I said, in your slide, you'll see an example of a picture that shows the oil on a pan, and it's just you can see the heat at the top of it, and it's called, the technical cooking term is shimmering. And you don't want it smoking, you don't want it super, super hot, so that it's burning, and like this might be. So that is ready to go. And you want to put them in carefully so you don't splash yourself. You can see there's still a lot of moisture on these potatoes. Yeah. That one. I have my trusty dusty spoon. And what I'm going to do is I am going to keep moving these so I make sure that they're all covered with oil. Because these potatoes, when you slice them, they have a tendency to stick together. And so you want them all separated because you want oil around all of them. Real nice. There we go. I think I got this up a little too high. But they're cooking nicely and they're not sticking. We're trying to make sure. Can you mention
how thick are the potato slices?
I slice them with a mandolin, and I slice them using the mandolin at 1/8 of an inch. They don't have to be exact, but you want them fairly thin, and you don't want some really thick ones and some really thin ones because you want them to cook evenly. But like I said, I slice them at 1/8. And one thing about the mandolin, I love the mandolin, but in your slides, you will see, always, always, always use the food pusher. Always, always, always use the food pusher. Don't ever try to get down there close to the mandolin because we don't want you to go to the hospital. So that's my advice.
Thank you.
So I cut the potatoes in advance so we wouldn't have that issue. We don't want to have to interrupt the presentation by a trip to the ER. All right. The other thing that goes in at this point, what I like to do is wait a couple of minutes get the potatoes starting to cook before I put the onions and garlic in. And the reason for that is so that the onions and garlic don't burn. So I've got my mise en place, my onions are all ready. And these also are just sliced, these are just sliced, not even with a mandolin, just sliced to about 1/8 of an inch thick, about the same thickness as the potatoes, maybe a little thicker, it doesn't matter, because they'll get cooked down nicely. And stir them in. And then, like I said, I love my garlic. So I'm gonna put my little bit of garlic in here. One of the things you'll see on the slide is that you can make this in a big pan, or you can make it in a small pan like I'm making here today. And it's really just double the amount. And it's the exact same either way. The timing is almost exactly the same. You're just using a bigger pan. So it just depends on how many people you're going to have over and to eat your tortilla with you. So today it's just my husband and me are going to eat it. So I'm making a small one. So now I'm going to stir the garlic and the onions in so they get cooked as well.
Wait a minute, Donna, I didn't tell you I was stopping by.
No problem, I hope you are. Okay. Alrighty, now, because I know you don't want to sit there and wait this whole time. Where's the other pan? Oh, it's in. All right. Okay, because I know that you don't want to sit here and watch the whole thing cook, we have cooked in advance part 2. So after these are all cooked through, what you will do is you will take your handy dandy strainer. I know mine's left over from my 1980s Tupperware. Works great though, it's perfect. And what you will do is you will drain the potatoes and the garlic and the oil, all the potatoes, all the onions, the garlic and everything go in the strainer over a bowl, and you just let it drain. And I've had it been draining for about an hour, doesn't matter. Typically you only let it drain for maybe 5 minutes or so. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna put it back in this same pan. And you're gonna put a little oil on the bottom of the pan. You don't need a real lot this time. And while that oil is heating up, I'm going to stir up my eggs. And this is not fancy. You don't have to beat them really a lot, because all you're going to do is take your potatoes that have been draining and take your whisk out of there, so you don't have to whisk in the way. And you're going to pour them in the pan, in the bowl. Make sure you got all those good onions. And then I'm going to take my bowl, and I'm just going to gently get that egg all around the potatoes. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so, and then when our pan is hot again, so if you were just doing one of these and everything was cooked through, because this would take about 5 more minutes to cook, you would drain them, wipe the pan out, get any bits that might have stuck out of the pan, and then put it back on the burner with a fresh little bit of oil. And you don't need a lot of oil the second time. You just want to make sure it's spread all around the pan so that it doesn't stick to your sides. And then once it's nice and hot, you're going to put the whole thing right back in. And it's kind of, at this point, it's called a Spanish omelet because it's made just a lot like making an omelet. So it's not quite ready. I think it's ready. So I'm gonna pour this in. Okay, it's ready. And you want to take all of that egg and just pour it right over the top. My pan isn't quite hot enough. There we go. Just like an omelet, you might want to just stir the egg into it so that it doesn't stick and so that it also kind of cooks evenly. And then you want to shake it and make sure that it doesn't stick. It's not sticking. Yay! We like that very much. And then if you are having a party, this is a party trick. This is really fun, especially if you have people who have had tortilla de patata before. They will be impressed because what you will do is you're going to keep shaking this and let it cook partway through. And I'm going to turn it down a little because you don't want the one side to burn and then have the other side not cooked yet. So you want to give it a couple of minutes and let it cook. And then what you're going to do is you're going to flip it over. And there are multiple ways that you can flip it over. If you have a really nice and big spatula, you can do it that way if you like. That's one way. You can just slide it off onto a plate. And then with another plate, flip both plates over and then slide it back into the pan. That's another way. And all of this is in your slice that you'll get from Suzanne. And I'm just gonna let this cook up a little bit longer. It doesn't look like it's browning. It looks like it's just cooking right through. Oh, just kidding.
Everybody's got the slides already.
Oh, okay.
And you don't cover it, right?
No, you don't have to cover it while it's cooking. And if you're really uncomfortable with the flipping process, you can just put it in the pan, get it started cooking, and stick it in the oven. And that's a very traditional way to make it. That's not unusual. So you don't have to do this whole flipping process. And this is the way that you can flip it. Okay. Put the plate on. You flip it over. Look at that. Look at that. And then I slide it right back in the pan. And let the other side cook. That's it. When it comes out, it'll be a little bit brown on both sides. And when you cut it open, I'll show that to you in just a second. You'll have the potatoes, the onions, the little bit of garlic, and that little bit of egg. And it's just delicious.
Have you ever had any accidents doing that?
That's why I did it over the counter and not the stove. I actually haven't, but it's very nerve-wracking. Actually, my husband is better at it than I am. He's braver and he does it much more quickly. I have to take a deep breath and then say, okay, I'm ready. But it seems like it's just cooking right through. Now this one had raw egg on it, so I'm going to get a fresh plate. And then you don't have to flip it over the second time. I mean, you're just going to serve it. Okay. I think it's done. I decree that it's done. So I'm just going to get a knife, a fork, and I'm going to cut it open and see what we see. Oh boy, does that look good. There you have it.
Oh, yum, yum, yum.
Tortilla de papa. And see the layers of potato and onion and the egg all around it. At this point, if you decide that it's not quite cooked through, you could stick it back in the oven, or you could just stick it in the microwave for a few seconds just to cook the egg all the way through. So if you don't want to put it back in the pan, that's okay too. It's just egg, so it's not gonna hurt anything. Questions? That's it. I can't wait to eat. It smells so good in here. I wish I could share it with you.
It looks wonderful.
I just saw a question. It said, is this ever made with green onions? You can make it with any kind of onion you want. I think that the tortilla de papa is not gourmet food. It's really soul food. It's what they make in the homes with leftover potatoes, the leftover eggs. Another thing that you can do is sprinkle some chopped parsley over the top of it when you're serving it to make it look prettier. But it's really not meant to be gourmet. It's meant to be down home, just everyday food. But it's so good. It's like if I grew up with macaroni and cheese and I love mac and cheese. You know, if you grow up with tortilla de papa, it's just soul food. So it's something that you make with whatever you've got. So yes, I think with green onion would be delicious.
So for us, soul food is always spicy. So we always add peppers to ours.
Absolutely. No question, it would be delicious. No question. I mean, you have omelets that have lots of spicy peppers and things in them. So this is just really an omelet. It's called a Spanish omelet. It's definitely just an omelet.
Yeah.
I want to put in a little plug, and I'm not being paid for this. I don't have any sponsors. But there are a couple of places in San Diego that you can get a number of different Spanish things. My very favorite is in your slides. It's called Pata Negra. It's on Garnett Avenue in Pacific Beach. And it's a Spanish grocery store, and they have lots of different Spanish things, including your paella pans, including chorizo, and lots of different cheeses and olives and anchovies and stuffed olives and all kinds of wonderful things. And the cookbook that I put on the last page of my presentation was a cookbook that I did buy in the 80s when it first came out. And it's all about tapas, but you don't even need to buy cookbooks nowadays because all of those recipes are online, and you can find lots of different versions of all of these recipes online. So if you lose the slides, you just look online and just type in a couple keywords, and you will find them. They're there. I'm sorry. I have one other question that didn't get answered yet. Can I find that? I'm so sorry. The question that got asked was, do you need fresh oil for the potatoes as opposed to what for the recooking? Yes, you would want fresh oil. You don't want to reuse the oil that drained off with the potatoes, because if you look at it, you will see where'd that bowl go? There's hardly. It's really a mixture of oil and the water from the potatoes. So it's not strictly oil anymore. So I would be hesitant to use this because I would be afraid that it would burn faster than because of the water in it. So I would use a little bit of fresh oil, because you really only need not even a whole tablespoon of oil, just a little bit to cover the bottom of your pan, depending on the size of your pan. So yeah, I would use a little bit of fresh oil, but it doesn't have to be super high quality olive oil. You're cooking with it. The higher quality olive oils tend to have higher burning points. You want a lower quality oil that doesn't burn so quickly. So just everyday olive oil. If you don't have olive oil and you cook it with canola, it's going to be delicious. It really just the olive oil probably adds to the flavor, but it's not a critical ingredient. Were there other questions that I missed?
I think we got to all of them. Man, it was so yummy looking. I bet we're all anxious to give it a try. I've actually been making this dish for a long time. Love it, love it, love it. I will just mention to everybody who is like really interested in checking out all of these tapas in Spain, you should all know right now that the current vaccination rate in Spain is over 80%. Over 80%. So, I mean, it's a really great place to visit right now if you're thinking about getting away over the holidays. You've certainly gotten us all to where we're dying to go out to a Spanish restaurant and have all of these wonderful hors d'oeuvres, or we can make them at home. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Suzanne, and I want to say one more thing. I can't wait until we can get back together and have our cooking demos like we used to have, where we could feed all of our participants and get to share the food with them, because that's what cooking really is all about, is sharing the food and sharing the love of our food. So, well,
in our new center, where we will be moving by late spring, it has a larger kitchen than what we had before, and a larger conference room too. So we'll be able to have even more people. So it'll be really, really exciting. Thank you so very much, Donna, for this lovely, lovely demo. And I think you're getting all the thanks from all of our members.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really well done.
All right. See you all soon.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.